So what now? The first phase that saw Gotabaya Rajpaksha leave this country and flee. All of you walked from that street corner, through the street corner, went up to the presidential palace. Do we see a repeat of that in the days and weeks ahead?
I think the days and the weeks ahead, we're still deciding in which shape and form resistance will happen. Obviously, there is a certain level of, a certain need to come together and to rethink and re-strategize. And I think that is a conversation that is happening quite centrally within all the groups that are here and present at and occupying the golface.
How many groups are there, and is everyone on the same page? Because some of the people I was speaking to seem to think that reviving the economy is very high on agenda. And I mean, you know, unless you have food to eat, how can there be a revolution? So for food to eat, there needs to be money coming into your tourists coming in, money coming in, economy being revived.
Certainly, I think the economy is as important for us as protesters. The reason that we were here to begin with was an economic crisis that was coupled with a political crisis. So we are in no way kind of, you know, slotting that further down the line and saying that a revolution or, I mean, we don't really even use that terminology, but this kind of resistance is necessary. So, I mean, if you really look at it, yes, the economy is important, but for the economy also to thrive, you need to have a level of confidence in the leaders, and I think that is a level of confidence that people don't have in Ranil Wickremesinghe, both locally and also through the international communities, through the different organizations that are looking to come to Sri Lanka to support us. That if we need to be able to have more political stability, and more political stability doesn't necessarily only mean just having someone in power, but also having a person who aspires the confidence that is required for people to be able to continue with their economic activities, and that is not something that Ranil has or something that he is able to give us.
Okay. Ranil Wickremesinghe, of course, a couple of days earlier had said that they're in advanced stages of talks with the IMF to secure a package, to secure a bailout. No details followed after that. But isn't an IMF bailout extremely important for Sri Lanka at this stage? Will that economic bailout not, it'll only come, or foreign aid, assistance and help only come for the people of Sri Lanka if there is political stability? In Parliament today, he reached out to Sajid Premadasa. Should political leaders come together? Would the street rethink its strategy, and what is the strategy? How are you re-strategizing your next move?
I mean, from the history itself, from when we began at the first day of the Aragalaya, we have been collectively talking to different parties of the political parties. We have been talking to the main oppositions as well. Therefore, there is a collective idea of actually removing this unethical political society which have been controlling Sri Lanka for.
But how will you remove them? What is the way to remove them? Elections are only scheduled now for November 2024.
I think, yeah, I mean, do you want to add? Yeah?
You want to comment on
I
that?
would like to add. The thing is that if we take the political parties, as protesters, we have been negotiating with them, but not negotiating. It's like putting forward our demands as protesters. Before the July 9th, before the people came out to streets, we on July 5th, as protesters, we put forward some demands, several demands, major demands, for the betterment of the country, for the politicians. And
so you're saying is there room for negotiation with the political dispensation?
now negotiation will open only after the stepping down of Ranil Wickremesinghe, because our major demands were Gotabaya Rajapaksa must step down, and the Rajapaksa clan should step down, and Ranil Wickremesinghe, who came as a protector, as a puppet of Rajapaksas, must step down. Then only country can get stabilized politically, because economic crisis has made a political and social crisis. Now political stability is needed to solve the economic and social crisis.
That's an important point that you make, because the point that is also being made very extensively here is how many members of parliament of his own does Ranil Wickremesinghe have? He himself, and came in through the back door, as some argue. Who is supporting him? The SLPP or the Rajpakshas? Now, if he's dependent on them to remain president, Can he go after corruption in this country? Can he then, and these are questions that are being raised by the people in Sri Lanka, does he have the political heft to carry through maybe reforms that are being talked about? The 19th Amendment, for example, reduced the power of the president, which he incidentally had pushed earlier. But then the 20th Amendment came, and then becomes extremely complicated. But in midst of all this complication, the problems that are being faced by people on ground, we bring you this report of an orphanage in Colombo that's almost running out of food.
Orphanages in Sri Lanka's capital Colombo are bearing the brunt of the economic crisis prevailing in the country.
Actually, in the market, there are some shortages of rice, the basic food items, rice and other related materials. But literally, we don't know actually what is the exact amount. But these children who are sheltered, they are in the vulnerable group now because of the foreign funds, NGOs, those kind of funds they are using for day-to-day activities.
Children residing in the orphanages are facing food shortages amid drying funds.
We are currently facing a lot of problems with regard to the economic aspect, where there's not enough money to get the food that is required for the children to feed them, but we have been doing our very best with the limited amount of food that we have in this place.
A sudden stoppage of foreign funds and funds from non-governmental organizations has forced the authorities at Gunasekara Child Development Center to limit the amount of food being provided to the children. Children who were earlier served 4 curries are now being served only 2 amid gas and food shortage. Inflation of over 50% and shortages of food, fuel and medicines have brought thousands onto the streets in months of protest that culminated in Rajapaksa's ouster and forced the country to seek help from overseas. As the new president takes charge in Lanka, will Lanka be pulled out of crisis anytime soon? Bureau Report, India Today.
So the challenges for this nation are immense. As a neighboring country, India is providing aid worth $3.8 billion. But then it's for the people of Sri Lanka and the government. Can they find a solution? What's the course of action as far as the Aragalia or the struggle is concerned? Let's say over the next week, 15 days and 1 month.
We will come together, we will re-strategize, and we will decide collectively how we take this forward, what should happen next. It may require a lot of rethinking because Ranil has a very particular way of dealing with protesters, also a history of violence, a long history of violence and being very oppressive, and that's something we will take into account. But we are not afraid. We haven't been for 103 days, and this is our plan to continue to go forward.
103 days and counting. That's the situation in Sri Lanka. Even as we speak, there is a new president in office. He has support in parliament. Does he have the support of the street here in Colombo and Sri Lanka across? We'll be tracking that story very closely, but that is all I have for you on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.